I want winners. I want people that want to win.
All right, want to thank Zach Hernandez for our intro video. Rod, I think that means that we're legit. We got a video, we got a theme song.
Production value, yes.
Yes, it would be a lot better debuting that video after a victory than after a loss. So
Exactly.
I am very happy for that. But how you been? It is Monday evening. We're gonna go a little late into the evening here, but we won't overstay our welcome. That game was so fast. I don't even think it was 3 hours.
That was crazy. I mean, I looked up and it was like, it's damn near halftime, and it wasn't even 7:00 yet.
Yeah. It was exactly the way that what they wanted to do, right? Keep the clock running. There wasn't a lot of penalties, so thankful for the refs, because both teams are pretty physical teams, and they just kind of let them ball out and play. And I know you mentioned in our Facebook group that Nick Bosa's held pretty much on every play, and yeah, they didn't call it. There was especially one right before the fumble where Samson Ibukam got the fumble. Like, you see Bosa's helmet like kind of go up, and I'm like, okay, I know what's going on here, this guy. But yes, it was a great game to watch from the perspective of the 49ers. I have a Rams buddy who I was in a chat with, and he was just ho-hum, same old problems that they've had over the whole season so far. So we'll break that down. But the first point that I have for you is our guy here.
The GOAT.
This is the GOAT. And my question for you to kind of kick this off, what was Jerry drinking there?
I know it's San Francisco and they want to say wine, but that's definitely, in my mind, that is Hennessy for real. That is Yak. That is what the GOAT is drinking.
I think you're right.
In my world.
well, I don't think it was wine, though. I think he was trying to pretend or show that, maybe trick people to think that it was wine, or maybe he started off with wine. And Jerry's one of those guys who, he's like a historic wedding crasher. So you can imagine, Jerry's just out there with the glass, and people, people have their stuff and they're just pouring for Jerry. Like, I mean, if I'd be pouring for Jerry.
I mean, come on, Gary. When's the last time Jerry Rice bought a drink?
He shouldn't ever. Like, if Jerry Rice has to buy a drink, like, we're doing it wrong.
Exactly. Him, all of them. Joe, Steve, Ronnie, all those guys should always drink for free in my world.
Yeah. It was great to see him out there. It's one of those things where, we don't see it in sports as often as we did when you and I were younger, but we were very lucky to have Jerry play, what was it, about 90% of his career in San Francisco. There are those Raider years, and he was still productive. And there was the forgotten Broncos year, and I think there was a Seattle training camp, or maybe I got that flipped around. But like, he is a 49er true and true, and it is great to see him come out and represent and show his love for the team. Because those guys now, you think about it, like someone like Debo, he probably didn't even really see Jerry play when Jerry was Jerry. Like, he's that young of a dude, right?
Yeah.
So it's great to see him. So I was happy to see him. I was happy to see him partying with the fans. Like, that fan base came out. Now, I don't know about the pink smoke bombers. I don't know what that was all about. I saw somebody get trucked by Bobby Wagner on the sidelines there, who had the pink smoke bomb. I'm sure we'll sort of figure out what they were presenting. There was a T-shirt that I couldn't really read, so there was some sort of thing going on there. But ultimately, it was a great night in Santa Clara. I've one problem with the ESPN broadcast. I thought the ESPN broadcast was super clean. It was great. There was one problem. They did a little animation of the cable cars in San Francisco. And I'm like, I know the logo on the helmet says SF, but these dudes are not hanging out in San Francisco like, for the last what is it, like 7 years now. They everything is in Santa Clara. Now I'm sure there's probably some folks who actually live a little bit further up north, but I think we got to figure out like a way to, like, it's not San Francisco. I know the fan base is still, the history is there, but we have to figure out a better way to like signify the Bay Area. Like, I love the idea that the Bay Area has so many teams, but to keep calling it San Francisco because of the logo is a little. I think it's a little disingenuous. I don't know. What do you think about
Well,
that?
I mean, you definitely. There's you can work a roller coaster into it, obviously. But hell, in terms of large cities, they're closer to San Jose than they are
Yeah,
San
absolutely.
Francisco at this point. Some little Santana Row action, or
Exactly.
yeah, exactly. The Winchester House. There's all kinds of stuff down there in the South Bay that is worth checking out and
Yeah.
worth promoting. To still be talking about 50 miles away is kind of lazy to me. I don't know.
Candlestick Park doesn't even exist anymore.
That's
Like
crazy.
like the stadium was blown up. Gosh, it's been a few years now, and the whole area is just a dirt area. Like, I don't even
Yeah.
know what they're gonna do with it. So, like that, like, I get it. Like, I love Candlestick Park like everybody else. Like, that's where I grew up going to Giants games. But I think we kind of need to move on with the
I
San
mean, in
Francisco
San
stuff.
Francisco, obviously, from like a television production standpoint, it's very picturesque, and
Yes.
there are a lot of iconic shots. So I get it from that standpoint, but it just doesn't reflect the reality of the team,
Yeah.
anymore. That's Warrior and Giants domain now.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. All right, we have some people checking us out live on the live stream on YouTube or Facebook or maybe even Twitter. So let's get into the nuts and bolts of what this game was really about. And I want to start with the defense because I know, Jimmy is the story because quarterbacks are the story, and that's just how it works in the NFL for the national media. But we're not national media; like we're the nuts and bolts of the hometown of the home team. And I have a question for you, and I'm not exactly sure what you're going to say, but I'm really interested on what you're going to say. And that is this 49er defense the best defense in the NFL?
I think so. I I was just looking as I was waiting for the live stream to start at the stats, and we're right there in terms of points allowed, and all the stats say we look very good as definitely top 3. So yeah, for real, I think they are when it's all said and done. And Nick Bosa is a monster. He is a problem. He really is a problem. That dude, we talked about it on another one, because not only is his get off amazing, if he happens to get on the ground, his motor just doesn't, he never stops. He's the Terminator. He just keeps coming. And he's just a load to deal with for anybody. And that just, in the analogy I made last week, I really believe it. He's kind of like Steph in that he just makes it easier for everybody around him, because the gravity of the offense has to, you got to find him, and it's all based on, you got to try to stop him. And so everybody else is able to get an opportunity to eat because of it. And the Rams, I thought they did, McGay, they did a real good job of trying to work that screen game
Mm-hmm.
to to try to use that aggression against us. And they move the ball pretty well. If they could keep Stafford clean, they were able to get a little bit done. They couldn't do anything in the red zone. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't until D'Amico started really dialing up some blitzes and heating him up that we were able to get him off his spot and then make some plays. But yeah, I to go back to your original question, yes, I think so. I think we are the best defense in the league.
Quick shout out to good friend Mark Nobita, who he watches. When the Warriors were in the playoffs, me and my son, we were pretty much up like at the end of every playoff game. We missed a handful, but we were pretty much up for all the games. And Mark was watching those live streams, so really appreciate Mark. And he checked in last year when the Giants were also in the playoffs. So thanks, Mark, for checking us out. And Mark is someone who I've known for, gosh, it's probably like over 20 years now, because our kids, I knew him before my son was even born, and so my son's 22. So his daughter is like a month apart. They're a month apart. So yeah, so over 20 years. Mark, thanks for hanging out with us. Also shout out to Rick, who says the depth of our defense separates us from most other teams' defensive units in the league. And I think that's a really great point, because Niners were without Kinlaw today, and then they lose Armstead. So they lose 2 tackles, and they're able to still have depth on the defensive line. When you have Bosa, like you said, Bosa just makes everyone else better. But Ibukam, he had a sack. He had the forced fumble. He looks great. He scares me though when I see that number. I'm like, oh man, that reminds me of Reuben Foster. I was like, is Reuben Foster back? No, that's not Reuben Foster. But that sets the whole thing off. And the secondary, we now have a lot of talent in that secondary too, so you can take some chances with those blitzes as Ryans was doing today. And you think about it, you go, wow, Cooper Kupp is one of the top 3 wide receivers in the league if he's not the top receiver. And to bring pressure means that sometimes you're leaving one-on-one with him, and we saw that in the end zone with Fred Warner had him one-on-one in the end zone. And so whatever he's doing is just fantastic. And we kind of joked about this in the Facebook group, but he's got to be like on top of boards to become a head coach next year. I don't know how much longer we're gonna have this guy.
He is so good. And like you say, like I was saying, he did such a good job in game making adjustments. And it reminds me of like a pitch. It's like a baseball analogy, but adding Mooney is like getting an ace of your pitching staff, and then it strengthened the staff, so you're able to move everybody back one.
Mm-hmm.
So now Mosley is not your number 1, he's your number 2, and on down the line. And it just has really made a difference in the secondary. And I noticed it immediately in camp that he just kind of brought an attitude that those guys were just really, really confident, and they're playing confident, which really changes the defense, because last year is a lot of cover 3 because you really didn't have anybody who you wanted, that you felt comfortable down in and down out playing man. So you're able to do that. And I mean, Cooper Kupp is just a monster.
Yeah.
He's just so good. There are times when, the coverage was right there. And I mean, he just finds an opening and Stafford finds him. And that's, it's just what it is. You're not going to shut him down. But I'm cool with that. If that's how they want to do it, if they want to just eschew everybody else and just target him, 20 times. That's fine. I mean, I think now we're in a position where we can survive that if we just rally to him and don't let him, get a whole bunch of yards after catch. I think this is a script. The way the game went tonight is fine. They really weren't able to do anything on the ground. They couldn't, no big plays.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you know what the yards per catch for Cup was?
It was.
If you were to guess before you even look at the number.
Oh, I don't think it was 10. I would say 6 or 7.
Yeah, it was like 8 something, and some of that was late. 8.7, which is amazing because his long was 18 yards. And so in that means that there was a handful of 4 and 5 and 6, sixes as well in there. And I thought the best thing about the secondary was they knew. It was almost like, okay, like you said, he's just going to catch the ball. Like, he's got great hands. He runs great routes. Stafford looks for him, more than maybe anybody that I've seen, and still, able to get him the ball. But the second he got the ball, there was like a couple of screens where he picked up a few yards after the catch, but he makes that catch, and those guys were on top of him, and they were not going to let him go, knowing that this is how we have to play them. Like, yep, he may get that, but we can't let him break loose and get the big play. And so I thought that was tremendous. The tackling in the secondary was tremendous. And the Rams, I did not expect the Rams to run the football. Cam Akers, what's up with Cam? 8 carries for 13 yards. Darrell Henderson, who I think he was just recently activated, he had 7 for 27, a little bit better, but by then, the Niners, the Rams were playing catch up by then, by where a lot of Henderson's carries were. And, the Rams couldn't run the ball. And so their offense was very predictable. It was very 49ers-like in the sense where it was a lot of quick stuff, which helped because I'm going to bring it up. Rick's guy, Hufanga, who we were talking about in the first 2 games, going like, okay, is he good? Is he just kind of a run stopper, nose for the ball kind of guy? How is he going to do against some of these teams who can throw the football? And today he makes the big play, which really puts the game away when Shanahan goes for the field goal instead of the 4th and goal at the half-yard line. And he's the one who puts the game away with the pick 6, jumping the route, which, Rams had to go quick because, or else, Stafford would have been sacked more than the 7 times that he was actually sacked. And so they were a lot of quick hits, and they jumped that ball. Hufanga, end zone, nose for the football, big play. We haven't seen him get beat deep on a non-broken play. We mentioned that Pettis, that Dante Pettis play in week 1. But yeah, man, what a find. For him to just be able to slide in and be the man, it has been great to see. And it's also, this is a hat tip to John Lynch and Kyle for really making it a point of like, if this guy's available, he's ours. Like, because we see things that, other teams who are looking a little bit closer to the 40-yard dash time, weren't seeing. So, man, what a play to ice that game for them. Well,
I'm sold. He's good. I'm not gonna get into the coded speech. He's not just instinctual. He's a player.
He's a player.
That was a smart play. He, from my vantage point, he knew what was happening. They were clearing out, and he jumped the route. It wasn't like it was just an instinctual play. He knew what was coming and played it. Played it aggressively. It was a great play. I think we're far enough along in the season to say this dude, He's a baller. He's legit. And we've now got a very interesting situation developing at safety, a place that was a question mark, I guess. Number one is just about ready to come back. And I think this is going to be football. Whoever earns those snaps is going to get those snaps. So Gibson has played well. Obviously Hufanga has, and Jimmy Ward, for the past several years has been the rock back there in the secondary. So I think this is a good problem to have moving forward at a position where, for me was definitely one of the question marks coming into the season.
And having depth is great because you saw today Kinlaw doesn't play, Armstead tries to play, gets hurt. To have depth on the defense is so beneficial to them, and to then have that in the secondary now, maybe Jimmy Ward maybe we can give him a few weeks to kind of get his feet under him a little bit and continue to get healthier and healthier, and then by the time he's ready, it could be where somebody else gets hurt and he just fills in. So that's really for me, it's such a nice thing to have for them.
Same thing at linebacker, with Aziz being out.
Yes.
Flanagan Fowles has stepped up, and then we'll get there later when we start talking about at the end when we talk about players of the game.
Oh yeah.
It's gonna be
you're gonna have like 10 guys.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting, and definitely one of our linebackers for sure. So yeah.
So the 49ers, and just to kind of put the period to the end of this point here, they've given up the lowest amount of points in the league so far at 46 points. One of those, I mentioned that broken play, which that counts. Like that's the offense taking advantage of a play, Justin Fields making a play. And one of those is actually a special teams breakdown where Robbie Gould gets the kick blocked in Seattle. But they lead the NFL in overall points against at 46. And I think the Cowboys are next with like 61 or something like that. So, they need to improve on the offense because they're also not scoring a lot of points. But from a defense perspective, they are not giving up points. I think they said today on the telecast, they haven't given up a touchdown in the first half all season long. So that's going to be a nice little thing to look at, especially as we go to Carolina next week, see if they can hold that. I think that's going to be one of those stats where, they're like, let's just keep it going. How long can we keep this going? Holding teams to field goals in the first half, and let's see if we can make it a thing.
Yeah, we'll talk about next week. But yeah, Carolina, that's rough. They are rough. But the Rams, you had kind of mentioned it with their running game. That's not a new phenomenon. They really haven't been able to run the ball all season.
No.
So I don't know, like you had mentioned, I don't know what's wrong with Cam Akers, but
so I asked my buddy who's a Rams fan. He said, he had the injuries last year and he came back late, and I think it was an Achilles actually.
Yeah.
And he's kind of in the doghouse a little bit from the perspective of the coaches, making a couple of things about, making the we need to see more urgency from him, which isn't great when you're talking about supposed to be one of your big playmakers on offense. Because outside of Kupp, I was like, where's Allen Robinson? Like, this guy should be eating in this offense, and he's not. The only other player outside of Kupp who even shows up in the statistics is Tyler Higbee.
Mm-hmm.
And he's 10 catches, but also only 73 yards. So he's catching the ball and they're wrapping him up, and they're not really moving the chains with some of these plays. So some of that is very much kudos to the 49ers. Some of it is also the Rams offense, and a lot of it is in their offensive line. They're banged up. They can't run the ball. So their offense has become pretty predictable. But yeah, I figured Allen Robinson was going to be a guy for them. And today, just two catches for 7 yards.
Well, one of my friends had messaged me, about a comment that Aikman had made about Cooper Cup or Tyler Higbee taking the top off the defense. I mean, you know, that's just not going to happen. That's
Yeah.
not their game.
No.
And Allen Robinson would be a guy if you thought of the guys out there, because obviously they don't have Van Johnson right now. Of the guys that are out there, you would think he'd be the one that they'd be trying to do. Well, again, somebody like Atwell or that kid Powell, but I don't know what's going on with them that you know they aren't able to deploy them, it doesn't seem, or don't have faith in. I don't know what it is, but there was nobody. They don't even really threaten us deep.
No, the other guy was um Skowronek. How do you pronounce his
Oh
last?
yeah.
And like, he's kind of tall and gangly, but he's not the guy
Not a
that you're really
burner.
worried about, taking it all the way to the house. And
Mm-mm.
really that's the difference, because the teams were playing closely. The Niners scored that first touchdown on the the Jeff Wilson Jr. burst, just found that burst and took it to the house over 30 yards. But with the exception of that play, the teams are kind of playing back and forth, kind of similar style. No one's really getting away from it. But the Niners have Debo, and Debo makes the one big play that was just enough for this offense to get out, and then you're playing with that 8-point lead versus what would have been a 1-point lead essentially, because of just trading the field goals.
Well, because I mean, as well as it was going, we were sitting there in the second quarter again at like 14-6, and it's like, here we go. We've played well, but that the team that we're playing against is right there. Um, you know, I guess I'm kind of shell shocked, sitting there waiting for disaster to
Yeah,
strike.
exactly. We'll
And
get to that in a second, because I've found a term for those moments where you're just kind of going like, okay, when are we going to make the mistake? And I think that they should just be called Jimmy throws, because we had a little bit of momentum. I forget the tight end that he was running free and he threw it over the wrong shoulder, and the tight
Warner.
end okay. And then on third down, I think he missed Jennings, who's like the tallest receiver they have. And I'm just like going like, oh no, like the Jimmy throws are back. Now, you could say the Debo touchdown
Was
was
a
a Jimmy
miss.
throw, right?
That was a miss. If he throws,
Because if he throws it to where Debo is, that's going
that's a
the other
pick.
way.
That's a pick six.
But
That's a pick six.
thankfully, because it was a Jimmy throw,
Thanks for the Jimmy throw in that case.
it was off target, and the DB who read it perfectly, like almost read it too good, because then Debo took it to the house. But the difference really to me in this game, in the second half, the defense just started teeing off on Stafford, because they knew, they're like, oh, you're just throwing every down. But going into the second and the third quarter, to me, the difference was Debo can make that play. He's a game breaker, and the Rams offense didn't have any of those plays.
Mm-mm.
And to me, we'll get to the MVP of this game, or the player of the game, in a little bit. But man, to have him on this offense, he is the guy that can erase mistakes for you.
Yeah.
And it's so beneficial to have him. And it's it's the missing piece of the offense, because where would we be without him? We would have very much been doing what the Rams had done. And Rick actually looked up the targets. Stafford had 48 throws, 33 of them were to Cup and Higbee.
It's just that's unsustainable. But
Yeah.
their whole I said last year they won the championship, so kudos to them. It worked out.
Yeah.
But that team is so top heavy. They've got all their money in like eight or nine players, and they're just one injury away from, you talk about the 49ers and their depth at several positions. The Rams aren't very deep.
Yeah.
And they I think right now we are all even. And from what I've seen 4 games in, we're clearly the best team in our division. Clearly. Seattle's not good. I don't think Arizona's good. Now, they're going to get D-Hop back, and I'm sure that'll make a difference. But yeah, it's interesting as a 49er fan and what we're going through with Jimmy. They in Arizona, every single play, after every play on Twitter, there's this running thing with Kyler and his body language. His body language is horrible, but they're really on him. He's a talented dude, but
Yeah.
I don't know. He's he's got a ways to go to develop as a leader. So I just say that to say that we just need to keep it together, get Jimmy in game shape and on the same page with his offense. And I think that we should be able to take this division because I think the arrow was up on us, but I don't see the arrow being up on any of those other teams.
I think the Rams have to play Dallas next, who is 3-1. So
And their defense is legit. The
yeah,
Cowboys defense is legit. And Cooper Rush, I'm not ready to put him in the Hall of Fame yet, but I think
Jerry is.
Yeah, he appears to be at least a competent backup for sure. I think we can say that about him at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know that he's an every week starter, but a backup quarterback doesn't have to be. He just needs to be good enough in 2 or 3 starts, and he's been that.
Yeah.
He's at least that. So, yeah.
So you watch a lot of NFL, and you keep up with some of these teams.
Mm-hmm.
4 weeks in, what teams are impressing you to the point of in your mind, you're doing the math going like, okay, if the 49ers face this team, how would we be able to beat them? Because 4 games in is not a large chunk. You probably want to get a little closer to halfway
Mm-hmm.
through before you're declaring Super Bowl contenders here. But when you look at someone like the Eagles,
Philly is legit.
they're legit. I think I liked Hurts a lot last year, and I know he kind of he didn't have a great playoff game there.
Mm-hmm.
But if Hurts can make that next jump, that's just going to be tremendous for them. And he's already playing pretty darn good football. But mentioned Philly, the Cowboys, they're both in the Niners conference. So, if the Niners are going to be good, they may have to run through those guys in the playoffs if the Niners make the playoffs. But who else do you think is kind of at that level?
Well, when you asked the question, those were the 2 teams that really jumped to mind. Cowboys, their defense is good. I'm still not a believer in their offense, even though Cooper Rush has played well. CeeDee Lamb seems kind of up and down to be a number 1 receiver. The Eagles seem to be like a total package. Their defense is really good. They're able to run the ball. Hurts, I haven't seen anything out of Hurts that I don't think isn't sustainable. He's legit, I think. But I was on him last year. So a lot of people I think are late to the party on him because they, for some reason, seem to be like rooting for him to fail or whatever. But I think
they don't want to be wrong. That's why.
Yeah, I think he's good. I think
you're making a great point here, and I think we need to point it out because this is exactly what we talked about last week, which is where the NFL is going. And a lot of these fans have been told over and over and over that if you have a running quarterback, that quarterback is not going to be good enough in the pocket to win games. And so Hurts has that because that was exactly what the people who didn't like him said when he was drafted. And now he's he's leading, what is one of the best teams in the league right now. And people are just waiting for him to have a bad game so that they can go,
See?
okay, even though there's these other 20 games where he's played well, here's the one where I can say, I told you so.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the tipping point is going to be for those devotees of the cement shoe pocket passer.
Super Bowl. He's got to win a Super Bowl.
When
Lamar Jackson, he's got to win a Super Bowl.
When you watch all over the league, RPO based offenses are everywhere. Mm-hmm. Everybody is running them. And even, I mean, everybody is running them. That is just what football is becoming. And as I've told people online, all you have to do is look. I happen to enjoy Friday football. I enjoy Saturday football, and I enjoy Sunday football. But if you look at the quarterback prospects in college, preparing for next year's draft, you're hard pressed to find any of those. I don't see the cement shoe pocket passers. Everybody, it seems to me that being able to move is a prerequisite now. It's not a nice, as Kyle says, obviously you got to be able to throw the ball, but you also need to be able to move around and make things happen when a play breaks down.
We had this running joke last year where I was like, there's no other player I root to fail more than Mac Jones.
Oh,
and it's petty. It's petty on my end. But it's more the idea that Mac should have been drafted over Trey. Like, I hate that idea. And I'm not saying that Mac is not going to be a good player, because he had a really good rookie season. But what happens is now they have tape on him, and he doesn't have that extra get out of jail free card with his legs.
Garrett, they made him 85 in the top 100. What are we doing? Mac Jones for real, y'all? Yeah. Yo, they really are wishing. Yes. They are really wishing.
But that's the point, right? I don't hate Mac Jones the player. I hate the idea that this type of player is the only type of quarterback who can succeed. And look, Stafford, right? Stafford won the title last year, so there is some data there. But I look at someone like Mahomes, even Rodgers. When Rodgers came out of Cal, he was running a pro set offense, but he had a ton of ability to get out of the pocket and run. He doesn't run as much now because he's older, but a young Aaron Rodgers was using his feet to get first downs. So, this is a very antiquated idea.
Yeah, but even they're running RPO now. Again, as it said, as Kyle has said, the O in RPO is option, and now the fact that Aaron chooses to throw most of the time is because he chooses that option. But the option is there for him to run if he chose to, just like Mahomes. But Mahomes will run it more than Aaron will, because he can. I mean, that dude he's the truth. But to further answer, the only other team I think just because of Aaron, it's interesting to watch him and how he is developed or helping develop those young receivers there. That's something to watch. Watson hasn't really popped yet. Watkins or Christian, whatever, the one that was Trey's teammate, that was the draft darling. He hasn't really popped yet, but the Romeo Dobbs has. So it's going to be interesting. So as far as other competitors for us, I think it's definitely Dallas, the Eagles, the Packers, and I guess the Bucks. The Bucks defense is good.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm not going to be the one to say Tom Brady's cooked, but there are signs that Tom Brady is not the same Tom. I saw a meme the other day that was saying this is Tom Brady now that had Jordan and with the Wizards. So he's still the GOAT, but there's levels to this.
You know, when we were younger, there was always the George Blando's the oldest player to like ever play or to ever play quarterback or whatever
Yeah.
the stat was. And I was trying to figure out when so I think Tom Brady is older than George Blanda when George Blanda stopped playing quarterback in the NFL. So that's how old Tom Brady is.
Wow.
So that age-old tale of George Blanda is Tom Brady is now older than
Tom
him.
Brady now.
It's now Tom Brady.
It's Tom Brady now.
So a couple of other things, you know, we've gone about 40 minutes without really talking about Jimmy. I think we need to give him a few kudos here because the one thing that I think he did very well is and we saw because we played the Rams 3 times last year. So we saw what happened, the good Jimmy versus the bad Jimmy. And I've said if Jimmy can just consistently play B+ football, I don't even need him to be an A. I just need him to be a B+, and this team is good enough to win around him. He did not take any sacks today. And more importantly than not taking any sacks, he did not throw any balls like just blindly to not take that sack. He was very quick in his decision making, and some of this was Shanahan. We knew Shanahan was not going to allow Jimmy to take very long with some of these throws because 99's lurking constantly, right? So I thought Jimmy's decision making was good. His throws, I don't know. If Jimmy is an A+, the Niners may have won this game like 35-10 or something like that. So the B+ Jimmy was good enough to win. And I think that's all that I can really expect out of him, because if I expect more than that, like you said, when he came back, we're kind of setting him up for failure. He's not going to be that guy. And I liked his decision making. Some of the throws could have been better. Thankfully, that one did not get picked off. But yeah, and Rick makes a good point. Shelvin as well. Props to the banged up O-line. Like, the Niners average 4 yards per carry without a Debo, long run. Jeff Wilson, I think he had 78 yards rushing. So
although 32 of that
32
was that
of
one.
them was it. And
but Brunskill came in and played well, and then it seemed like, which is the only the best case scenario for us, is because it seemed like Burford was struggling, but I mean Aaron Donald is a problem for everybody. But
there's one play where Kittle is reaching. It's later in the game. I think it's fourth quarter. Kittle is like reaching for yards. Like he makes a catch. He goes through the first tackle and he's extending and he's stretching. And Donald comes in and blasts him and stops all momentum for poor George Kittle. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, George Kittle's a big dude and he's able to fight through some of this stuff. And Donald just was like, nope, here's the wall and you're going to go backwards. I was like, Jesus, this guy.
Yeah. So as I mentioned with Brunskill, he comes in, kind of settles everything down, and then Burford comes back in, and they're kind of like rotating, which is interesting in game that which is cool. I mean, I think that should happen more often. If a guy's not playing well, just pull him. And I mean, he doesn't have to be done forever.
Yeah.
I mean, that happens at receiver, it happens at running back. It didn't happen today at running back, which is something I want to ask you about, and I found interesting that Jeff Wilson, Debo got a couple of carries, Juice got a carry, I think, but primarily it was Wilson tonight.
Yeah.
He got all of the running back run, which I thought was interesting because Mason and Mac and Coleman all were active tonight, but none of them saw any run on offense. At least I know Mac recovered that fumble on special teams, but
I think
yeah,
Coleman was in on a pass play, I think.
okay.
And I thought you were going to say, "Can we talk about Tevin Coleman?" But no, it was very interesting because I did think we were going to see some variation and some change up and some. But once they took that lead, he seemed really confident in Wilson, and Wilson was running hard. Like
Yeah.
that was the thing is he was not dancing, he was just shooting for the hole, and he was moving his legs. And there, I don't know if he had. I mean, he may have had one play where they tried to go wide, where he lost yardage, but I think that was the only one, and everything else was positive yardage. So that was kind of the game Shanahan was playing, and I imagine if the 49ers did get behind a little bit and he needed some, maybe a playmaker here or there. Maybe Coleman does get in the game as a third down back or something, and they dial up something for him. But yeah, it was kind of. I'm sure Shanahan was like, "Great, like this is kind of what I want to do." And we didn't give up the lead, which I know all 49er fans were just waiting to happen because the NFL, like I mentioned this, the NFL is built for these games to be close. It teeters towards the offense in just about every single part of the game where the offense gets the benefit of the doubt over the defense on all of these penalties and all the rules. And so I pretty much figured, like, okay, it's going to come down to Jimmy having to get a couple of first downs and for us to win by 1 point. Thankfully, it didn't happen that way, but I know a lot of 49er fans felt that was what the game was going to be about.
Well, I mean, because like you say, the NFL is set up that way. Because still, even up until the final pick six, it was still a 1-score game. So it was there for it to be close.
Yeah.
And fortunately for us, the defense made a play to go ahead and put it out of reach. But I was fully expecting it to be at 6 minutes, a 1-score game, and
Thankfully the Robbie Gould miss didn't hurt us either.
Yeah,
I just I was like, oh no, here we go.
Yeah, he's still my MVP. I don't
Yeah,
care.
yeah. We've gone through too many of them to be too negative about Robbie. Okay, so let's talk about the player of the game here. I think we have a large list of guys to pull from. I think, and I'll let you figure out yours because I think there's so many people that you could pick because I think the Niners played a really, really good football game. And, Rick and Shelvin were saying, look, the offensive line without Trent there, they played over their heads, and the defensive line I thought played excellent. The Bosa and then, the sacks that came and Hufanga, you could name all these guys. I'm going to go to Debo because of the fact that his ability to break plays allows the 49ers to not have to play perfect football on offense because they can kind of, they start hot. And we've seen this before. They start hot. They had a good first drive. And then all of a sudden it's like 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. And you're like, but then Debo makes a play. And it's like, okay, I'm fine with how they're doing it because, we got that guy who can make that play. And the second he made that play, you were like, okay, now we're not dependent on, we have a little bit of wiggle room here. The defense, if they give up a big play, we're okay. Because if not, if you don't have those kind of plays and you're just sort of, kind of going up and down the field very slowly, the defense could slip and there could be another Dante Pettis like play. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, what happened to this game? Debo afforded them to not have to worry about, okay, if we make one bad play, we could lose this thing. So I thought that was the play of the game because it gave them some space to actually have the lead. And it gave the defense a little bit of, it took a lot of the pressure off of their back, I thought, because they have to play against Stafford and Kupp, and knowing what was going, like, because of the game that I think the Rams had the time of possession, like 36-24 or something like that. So it gave them the space to not have so much pressure. To if they were going to make a mistake, great. We Debo made that play so that everyone doesn't have to play so tight. So I thought that was the biggest play in the game, and he's my guy.
Okay, you're right. He is a player of the game. But I'm at a place now where moving forward, Debo and Nick are disqualified. From my standpoint, they can't be player of the game.
I love it
because they're player of the game
every game,
week.
every week.
So my guy this week is Dre Greenlaw,
and he was my guy, or he was one of my guys last week. I think I had 2 last week.
He was amazing. He showed up in tackles, which can be misleading.
Yes,
but he also had. Let me see. He also had a sack. He also had a forced fumble. So, in addition to however many tackles it was, I know
he's credited, according to the ESPN box score, he was credited with 15 total tackles and 12 solo tackles, which is twice as many as Fred Warner had, who was second behind him.
Yeah. So he's my guy this week. Again, the correct answer is Debo. But if you're not counting Debo, and if it's not Debo, it's Nick, because he was just, whatever it was, four quarterback hits. I gave Greenlaw a half a sack on one of those sacks, but they gave it to Nick. So they said Nick had 2. I had him at 1.5, and then with Dre having a half as well. But either way, he was all over the place, and he was really impactful. And I think that's important with, to have that second impact player out there with Fred Warner it really speaks to what you and Rick have talked about as a theme here, is the depth on defense that we have. To have a guy that good, and it was good to see him get his money this week as well. He's made a couple of bonehead plays this season, but you can accept plays of aggression. If a guy has got his toes on the line, with aggression, you can kind of live with that. So that's my guy this week is Dre Greenlaw. Good job.
All right, let's talk about the last thing, which is kind of setting us up for next week's game, which is Niners going to Carolina on Sunday. It's actually an afternoon game, or a late or an early evening game for people in the Eastern time zone. I feel like the Niners should go into Carolina and wax these guys. However, they are, I believe they're 3-1, and not to say that they're world beaters in being. No, they're actually no. I'm sorry, I had their record incorrect. They're 1-3. I don't know why I had that flipped around. But they are a team where I feel like the Niners should go in there and wax them. I remember being the last time they played the Panthers, I was at the game in Santa Clara, and I think the Niners won by like 40 points or something. So maybe that's kind of in the back of my mind as far as what this Panthers team is. But if you kind of dig in a little bit more closely, in their 1-3 record, their net points is not terrible. And so they're losing close games. Their problem, in one of their big problems, is that they have a quarterback in Baker Mayfield who's not playing very well, but they don't have a plan B, because the guy who they brought in last year to be their top dog, Sam Darnold, is still hurt. So it's kind of like they have to play Baker because they have nobody else. But I I don't know. Though also those teams, we always talk about sort of trap games. You kind of worry about that. Niners coming off of a Monday night game. They're on this high. They just beat their rival, and you kind of go in and overlook Carolina a little bit. And Carolina needs a win. They just got beat by the Cardinals. They're going to they're going to play the Rams next the week after next. So, if they're ever going to right their ship, it's got to be in one of these next 2 weeks. So I'm very hopeful that the Niners can kind of go in there and take care of business. But it does scare me a little bit in that, there are some possibilities for trap game kind of stuff heading into next Sunday.
I just think, I say this knowing that, I watched the Bear game and I watched the game last week, but I've watched a bit of Carolina. I lived in North Carolina for a while, so I kind of, adopted them as
Where in North Carolina?
I lived in Wilmington for a couple
Okay.
years, and went to a Panther game, and neighbors were Panther fans, so I kind of follow them. McCaffrey hasn't really got off. Their offensive line is a big question mark. Their defense is decent, but they've got a lot of injuries. Their corner, J.C. Horn, is really good, but we shouldn't have any problem containing them with our defense, with what they've got going on offense, and we should be able to move the ball on them. So this is a game where we should win by double digits, but offensively we really haven't shown the ability to like put teams away like that. So it's on the road, so it's gonna be, we're not gonna make it easy. I just know that at this point, but I would expect us to be able. It should be a comfortable win, but it's the NFL, so who knows? But yeah, if we lose this game, it's a problem. We're talking about Chicago level problem where we're, because that's going to be a game that we look back on at the end of the season. I don't know that it'll end up costing us anything, but we're going to look back on that. So that's one we definitely let get away.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so you'll remember, I think 49er fans will remember the last time we played Carolina, because Nick Bosa tipped a pass and then intercepted it and ran all the way down the field like he was going to score a touchdown. And then I think he gassed out before he got there, and he got tripped up in, like, inside the 5 or something. So, yeah, my wife went to she did her master's at UNC, so she's also got some family out in Gastonia.
Okay.
Home of Big Game James Worthy. That's where Big Game James is from.
I love the Triangle. Oh my God, that's one of my favorite places. Raleigh, Durham.
Yeah,
that's an awesome place. I can't imagine having gone to college there. I'd have never. That was a problem everywhere I went. I found the parties everywhere, so it wouldn't have mattered. But from the time I've spent in Raleigh, I love it there. So
it's
I'm
a cool
sure
place.
That was a blast.
Definitely a cool place. Yeah, I think if I lived out there, I would probably be 25 pounds heavier than I am now. So
man,
it's a good thing that I don't, because every time we go on vacation, I'm just like, oh my God. All right. So we'll be back next week after the Carolina game, hopefully with smiles on our faces, like this game, and I maybe even smiles on our faces as big as this guy here, old Jerry drinking
I am
the brown.
so glad you captured that picture, because if you could post that in the group, that would be great, because I want that's going to be a meme of some sort.
Oh yeah. All right, so we'll be back next week. You can find our audio on the BSPN Bay Area Sports Podcasting Network podcast feed by searching through BSPN. And our YouTube page, same thing. Just search for BSPN. We're putting clips and stuff of, we have this long show, but I'm also posting clips of just smaller conversations that people may want to check in on if they don't have the full hour to listen to us. And BSPN on Twitter and Instagram is at BSPN Shows. And yeah, if you have the ability to subscribe to YouTube, to follow us on any of our social media, to subscribe to our podcast feed, and maybe even leave us a 5-star review in Apple Pods or Google or whatever you use to listen to pods, that would be awesome. We're trying to grow this thing a little bit. Tomorrow, I will be doing Thompson to Clark. But my buddy Brad, my co-host Brad, who is the Rams fan, who I tried to get to come on with us tonight, but he's on vacation. I think he'll be able to do it the next time that they play. He's out of town, so my son, who I do the Death Lineup podcast with on this network, he's going to join the Giants show. So that'll be tomorrow around 5 to 5:15 ish Pacific time. So if you are around that time, talk some Giants baseball. Only 2 games left after this season for the Giants, and then the wild card and all that stuff comes. So thanks to everybody who was checking us out. Rick, Shelvin, stalwarts in our We Want Winners community. Other folks who I've never seen, like Derek Russell was in here. Really appreciate you, Derek. And of course, the great Mark Nobita was also hanging out with us live. So for Rod, I'm Double G. We'll see you when we see you. Peace out.
Guys.